What's up, guys? Jamie Boom Boom here. The bees needs the cat's pajamas. I'm here with best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, amongst many, many, many other things, Justin Kingsley. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Let's go. It's the bees needs the cat's pajamas. What's up, guys? Jamie Boom Boom. The bees needs the cat's pajamas. What's up, guys? UFC vet.
Oh man, he is quick, this guy.
Justin, what's up, man? What's up, my man?
Renovations is what's up. It's not very exciting. There's all the usual stuff, but there's a lot of dirt, dust.
Man, I've known you for a long time. Mutual friends, obviously, a Montrealer. Well, you're from Ontario. You found yourself here in Montreal. Now you're finding yourself even further, I guess. You told me off air that you're building a farm.
A pandemic farm. I needed a getaway, so my wife and I found a beautiful little spot near Les Chutes on the Rivière du Nord, and we're renovating it. Beautiful house from 1870, built by the British Army, and we're not touching the exterior, of course, but the inside. It'd be like if we had 20 MMA guys go in there and we said, just knock yourselves out.
Just smash it up.
Leave nothing standing. And that's what we did. Yeah, that's what I'm up to.
That's so nice, man. I mean, you guys are finding a real bubble, I guess.
I'm a writer, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, my core skill is writing, and that I do alone. So the pandemic, we're making fun of, but the reality is it made a lot of us rethink our lives. Yeah. And I realized I was spending money to rent space downtown for people to work at, and I thought with the same amount of money, I could buy a beautiful place in the country, have a place to go write and withdraw, you know? So now, instead of being in the city and brouhaha and chaos, I wake up in the country most days. I get up, I can write 3-4 hours with the birds. I go walk in it's much more.
Could be worse.
It could be a lot worse. Yeah. So yeah.
But is that something you found? Because I mean, I know you personally, but I'm not sure. I know you have your place there in Mile End, but did you have an office? Is that what you said? You had an office before?
I had an office in Mile End. I had a production studio, right, where I would do stuff. And you just start looking at what you're investing to pay someone else's mortgage to maybe there's a better way to do things. And that's a bit my philosophy, right? It's in everything. Some people say this is the way we've always done things. Why change? Then there's people like us, because I include you in this, who say, well, there's got to be a better way. Yeah. Why don't I look for it? And that's, I guess, part and parcel for everything I've done. Is let's just try to find a better way. And that's it. That's a much better way for me. Much better for my mental health, my well-being, my family's well-being, our son's education, Yeah,
I guess the pandemic really showed people that, look, you have to be able to kind of branch out and do things certain different ways, or a lot of office spaces are
the way I see it is now. Do what you want. The pandemic, look at you. You've converted a really successful 2-country fighting career into a media career. That's just beginning, but look at where you are already. That's embracing.
Thanks, man.
Well, it's facing fear. Yeah. Right, which is courage, which all fighters that have stepped into the ring have courage, because they face a fear. But then it's also going into the unknown and saying, well, fuck it, I'm going to try this. And the worst thing is, well, again, fighter analogy, you get knocked down, I'll get back up. Yeah. Right? We've all been knocked down. We've all got scars, virtual or real. Once you learn that it ain't going to kill you, you get back up. So I think the pandemic for a lot of people, I hope anyway, from what I see, has made that a lot clearer. Yeah. This is what I want, and I don't want any more of this. I'm done with that stuff, and what I'm about is this, which is the mirror, which is what you want. Instead of people living other people's dreams, it's realizing who they are. It's realizing who they are and what they can do with their own aspirations.
This is a nice segue, because yeah, it's true. We're using the pandemic, us here at BTC Studios, we're using the pandemic to, you got to pay the bills, but primarily we're doing things that they're all about just BTC, just be the change. BTC doesn't stand for Bitcoin, obviously. It stands for be the change. And that's something that when I jumped on board with these guys, it's like, man, this is the kind of crew that I want. They're young, they're hungry, they're creative. Kind of like you when you started, because you started working in Ottawa. And one thing that's super interesting about you is, I'll never forget you telling me this. You're like, Well, I was taking the jobs that nobody wanted to do.
Yes,
you know,
you have a great memory, man.
You were taking the jobs no one don't, and it started with the sports stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, you were an athletic guy, obviously a basketball player. Now, you're into fitness, you're into training, obviously healthy lifestyle. You're someone that I worked out with, very fit guy. And, well into your late 30s. I'm kidding. But yeah. but
Hawaii, baby.
You know what I mean? A fit guy, man. Like, so what happened? What was that like the beginning? And what's it like being a young writer in Ottawa? And how the hell did you move up so quickly? Tell that story, because it's an awesome story, man. Like, I love stories like that where people are you're kind of picking up scraps and you end up with, with gold or diamonds or whatever.
Well, it's very kind. Thank you for saying that. I mean, I won't give you the life story, but if I go way back, the early days is it's the typical tale of the reject. I don't know how else to say it. No friends, no entourage, a lot of solo time. That's how you develop creativity. That's how I developed anyway, my ability to make up scenarios in my head, which kind of sucks in a way, but in the same way, it's what's allowed me to be who I am today. So there's no regrets. But yeah, I figured out in my teens at some point that you got to show your bosses you're willing to do not just the glorious work, but the shitty work. So it was a guy at Richie's Sports Shop, Jeff Wallace, who was the manager of our store. I'll never forget, I was 15 years old making $4.35
selling
an
sporting
hour.
Goods?
Richie's Sports Shop was the best sporting goods store in Ottawa, bro. First place that sold Jordans in Canada. First place to have New Era hats.
Let's
the
go.
fitted hats in the 80s, bro. Like, this was our time. Anyway, I remember one day I go down to the basement and Jeff, the manager in his 30s, is cleaning the toilet on his hands and knees. And I go, Jeff, what are you doing? I'm here. He goes, I do the first one to show you I'm not above it. You'll do the other ones after, but you learn, no one's too good for any job. So that's one. So I just carried that. And I grew up with parents who were senior in the federal government, which means they had a lot of responsibility. And so you see what at the dinner table, how they're managing those responsibilities, what their pressures are and what their frustrations are. And what I realized is the bosses they don't just want people to bring them problems, they want to bring them solutions. These things are so simple. So I just said, position yourself as a guy who's always there for solutions, who's always someone they can count on, who's there for them instead of just yourself. And that's been basically the rule all along. And it's funny because one of the questions I'm asked so often is what do you do? What's your title? And there is no title because I work in so many different fields, but I'm a storyteller. But it really what it is it comes back to what you were just talking about. And
that's Pascal. He's a story. When I met him, that's kind of, I was like, what do you do? And that's pretty, I think if I can describe it, that's what he is, a storyteller.
And if I look at the spirit of what I do, I love Japanese culture. I've read a great deal. I've visited the country. I mean, I've been there. But there's a concept of a retainer in Japan. The way the samurais were retainers, serving an idea and an ideal. And so that's the role I try to play even today. Like, I work with CF Montreal, the soccer team. The president's my client, Kevin Gilmore. Well, I see myself as his retainer. Now, the Japanese took this to extremes. When the master died, they would commit seppuku, which is, because your master's gone, and their belief was their master was gone. So the belief for the samurai was that I no longer have a reason for living. So they would take their own lives. Now, that's an extreme example of a retainer, but if you just keep the lessons, serve an ideal, serve an idea, serve another person, not just yourself, well, then you're looking at win-win. And when you think win-win from the get-go, you're thinking of other people. Mm-hmm. And that opens doors. And that's the secret to me, because I'm a collaborator. So when people understand, oh no, I'm going to win with this guy too. He's going to win, but I'll win too. Well, then nobody loses, right? So that's something that started very early. And I try to put it at the core of every project I do.
Wow. It's very similar to what Antonio Park was saying, how he really, he comes there, he works hard. He started as a dishwasher himself. He came to Canada. He's obviously an immigrant here. And just the fact that he worked hard and he scrubbed floors and he did what he needed to do, and then now he always, he tries to instill those messages on the younger staff.
And when you go into his restaurants, he's there.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm.
It's not another person because he's out taking a night off, and he's behind the counter and he's working. He's setting an example. And then you look at what he does in the community, a lot of giving. Right? Like I have friends who are publicists who work with all these foundations, and you see Antonio all the time. So that's the other element, is putting your money where your mouth is, right? Not just saying stuff for the sake of saying them, but doing them.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of, and he's become a globally iconic chef. So
it's cool.
Proof's in the pudding.
Mm-hmm.
Or so proof's in the sushi, to coin a phrase. Right here.
We'll make T-shirts. Yeah, but that, so again, to just let people understand, if anybody watching, our humble following, our big, huge 300 followers. But yeah, you're
300 more than me.
That's it. We're getting there, but we're not New York bestsellers yet. But the reason I bring up this whole anecdote in the whole beginning is because, again, just back to the writing. You're a writer. I mean, that's what you're kind of known for in the media for doing. Yeah. And then you started writing for just a local paper, I think, at the university.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So to pick it up, I mean, my career paths have been a bit like a guy at the foot of a mountain with a machete, and there's no path. That's how I see it. I visualize a lot of stuff. So I started out in journalism. So yeah, I mean, by the time I was in grade 12, I had a radio show on the FM dial in Ottawa at 6 a.m. called L'Euphorie. Like you're 17 years old. That's what I did for fun. That, again, the beauty of not having friends is you got time on your hands. So I had a radio show, was the editor of the high school paper. Then I went to university and I learned how to work at Concordia. I learned what real work was and the difference between talent and skill, right? Because skill is something you develop, whereas talent is something you have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I just started saying yes to everything. Yes to everything. Even if someone said, hey, Justin, like I'll never forget the Gazette one day. Montreal Gazette calls me, said, hey, Justin, we heard some good things about you from the sports editor, because I've been doing sports stories for them and covering, the Impact back in the day and the Roadrunners, the roller hockey team. And again, what no one else wanted to cover. No one wanted to cover roller hockey, but Yvan Cournoyer was coaching. So I'm like, yeah, it's going to be cool. I get to interview Yvan Cournoyer.
A legend, yeah.
So anyway, where was I going with this?
So yeah, how did you take that? How did you curtail that into obviously the career you have now?
Oh yeah, so it was say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Just say yes to everything. And the editor says, well, I got to put out a section on classic cars. You know anything about cars? And I lied through my teeth because I don't know shit about cars. Yeah. I don't care about cars. I can tell you about sneakers, clothing, I don't know about cars. But that weekend, I'd been in my friend's car, which was a convertible MGB.
Oh yeah, the little one, Moore's Garage, the little
so
English
I talked
cars.
about that car for 15 minutes, bro, and that drive and the feeling of freedom you get from driving that car in the countryside and the wind in your hair. And she goes, oh, great, you're hired. You know what I mean? And then you figure it out after. You dive in and you figure out after, okay, they said yes, now what do I do? Well, for me, that's a great situation. Yeah. I can handle it. So yeah, I just kept... And the other thing is identifying opportunities, but just saying yes. Good luck hearing me say no to someone.
Yeah.
My problem is I want to say yes to everything. I want to do everything. I want to try everything. Curiosity. So yeah, then it went from journalism, and then I realized, well, I don't want to spend my life talking about what other people are doing. I'm a doer. So what's next? Well, then I looked at what I know. I knew the media. So I said, why don't I go work on the other side of the fence in media relations and public relations? Okay, so I went and did that. Oh, I'm pretty good at this. I understand how reporters work, and I'm good under pressure because I was a journalist and I know what a deadline is. Oh, and look at that. There's crisis management connected in this, and everyone hates crisis management and is scared to death of it, but not me, because I didn't do the bad shit. I'm just figuring out how to communicate the positive. You understand? Yeah. So you go, okay, so I'll try that. And then you realize, okay, I'm not bad at that. And then, so I went from journalism to media relations, public relations, and therefore crisis strategy, brand strategy. Did that for a few years. And then I got a scary call. Canadian Institutes of Health Research wanted someone to make sure that brain research is high on the media agenda in this country, and knowledge translation, which I had no idea what knowledge translation even was, even though it's what I do.
Wow.
So I said yes. scared. I got to do this. Worked with one of the great scientists in our country. And then the Prime Minister's office called.
Yeah. So then you became the press secretary for the Prime Minister, Paul
for
Martin.
the Right Honorable Paul Martin. I managed also the macroeconomic portfolios in the Prime Minister's office, and I did that for about a year.
Man, give us some juice, man. What happens in the Prime Minister's office? Do you
Not
know about
enough.
aliens?
Not enough.
Does Justin Kingsley know? Not enough, huh?
If you want to laugh, if you Google my name and Paul Martin,
Yeah.
the top hitting story is the time that our plane sighted a UFO. Because when you're on a plane and you sight a UFO, the law requires the pilot to register the sighting of that unidentified flying object, which goes on a registry, which is followed by very nerdy people. And so the most questions I ever got and the most media hits I've received with the former Prime Minister,
man?
there was an unidentified flying object. So did we see it? Yeah, we saw it. Look, there's a light. And then it disappeared. And these things happen every day. And but again, in the new world, you have to answer some of these things, right? So yeah. But to answer your question about what happens in the Prime Minister's office, not enough.
Yeah.
And that's why I left.
Really, huh?
I'm a public servant at heart. My parents, my family are public servants. And if you look at what those two words mean, think about it for a second. Public servant. And when's the last time you saw a politician on Parliament Hill who you really thought was there for the public? I haven't seen one in a long time. And so I just got fed up and disgusted with politics and the bullshit that comes with it. I'm a doer. And that was just too slow. So I left. And I changed my life. And I embraced creativity. I followed my gut. And I got recruited by Cossette Communications. François Dufort, the founder of Cossette, reached out to me. We'd met and we knew each other. And he said, when you're ready to leave politics, give me a call. And I did. And then Cossette, Bleu Blanc Rouge, Sidley, top 10 agency in the world.
Wow.
I was the head of strategy. So again, it's just saying yes and saying, well, fuck it. I'm just going to try. And the worst thing that happens is I fail and I start back up. I used to have this, I used to keep a picture in my bedroom by the door so that I'd see it whenever I walked out of my room in the morning. It was a picture of my parents' lake, and they had a cottage on that lake. And I'll never forget, my mom, I was talking about my concerns and what happens if I get fired and what happens, all these. She goes, the worst thing that can happen is you have to move back home and we send you to the cottage. So I would just never forget that. The worst thing that happens if I have to piece my life back together is this lake and that cottage, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize that you're a lot less risk averse than you should be or you can't. You know what I mean? Like the risks aren't as bad as you think. You just got to try.
Yeah.
So that's it. Focus. Well, and all of this culminates in one thing. Learning to focus energy in the right place. I hear so many people complain about the problem, complain about the issues, talk about things that they have no control over. I got no time for that.
Yeah.
Because I got no control over it. I can't change it. So why would I give something I can't change my beautiful energy, my focus? No.
Wow.
Put your energy on things you can focus, things you can change. Put your energy on areas where you can have a real impact that connect to who you are. And then something magical happens, because there's this awful expression, find something you love doing and you won't work a day in your life. It's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard. Find something you love doing and you'll work every day for the rest of your life on that thing, but you'll have a smile on your face. That's the difference.
It's crazy because it's so relatable to sport. You know, all these things I'm hearing, and again, Pascal always tries to help me out because we read a book called The One Thing, and the one thing I have trouble with is I'm by nature a bit of a scatterbrain, so I'm always wanting to do so many things in the day. And I think that's what I was going to ask you is how do you focus in? But I guess you kind of explained it there, is how do you focus in on one thing when you've got all these other things pulling you in so many directions? Like a guy like you, you're saying yes to everything. You've got so many things going on. You're a family man. There's so many things. How do you focus on that one thing when there's so many things pulling you? Because at this point now, we spoke off air and you've got a million things going on.
Yeah.
So how do you focus in on what's the one thing for you? Is it the one thing at the moment? Do you make a list in the day?
I'm a Buddhist.
There you go.
I made my first list yesterday at the age of 50 of my life.
Are you 50?
Yeah. I don't make lists.
You look good for 50, man.
Thank you. I've never made lists in my life. I made my first one yesterday. So it's not that. It's a skill I learned on how to focus. And these are things you learn, because I'm scatterbrained too, and I'm open, like you. And it was sports journalism. Because I was 21 years old, covering the Montreal Canadians for the Canadian Press. And when you're a sports reporter covering games, the games finish between 10 and 11 p.m., okay? Now, back in the day when newspapers were printed in the morning and distributed, you had to get your story into the newsroom by a certain hour so that they have time to correct it, put it on the wire. The newspaper in Halifax, which goes to bed at 1 a.m., gets that story, prints it, and it's on your doorstep or someone's doorstep in Halifax at 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. That means you got 25 minutes on average to write 500 words at the end of a game. And you have no choice. You don't miss the deadline. It's a mindset. You don't miss the deadline. 500 words by 11:05 is what you deliver. So you're in a stadium. There's 19,959 people losing their shit. It's 2-1 in the third period. There's 3 minutes left in the game. And you know that in 15 minutes you have a deadline. You don't have a choice but to learn to focus and execute the job that's in front of you.
Wow.
You're at the Olympic trials and you're representing, you're fighting for a place to represent Canada. And you're in a stadium and there's thousands of people screaming, losing their shit. Your insane wrestling coaches, because I know they're crazy, are giving you instructions. Your family's there. You probably have Faras and George St. Pierre not far away, and you've got your opponent, and you've got all these. You got one thing you need to focus on, and it's that guy over there who wants what you have. So all these other things become a blur. That's it. You learn how to focus through practice, repetition, and discipline.
Yeah.
There's no other secret. It's exactly like an athlete. It's the same thing. We do the same thing in a lot of ways. So that's it. You make a decision. No, what I do now is, okay, the next hour I'm working on this. I will not answer the phone. I block everything out. I say, that's it. Next hour is this. And unless it's my wife or my mom, good luck getting through.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Make choices. Stick to them.
It's so true, man, because, again, like, I'm learning now, it's like, where do I focus my energy? You know, I was an athlete my entire life. Now I'm trying to do the media thing. I'm trying to do different things, and it's a never-ending struggle. Again, like you said, 50 years old, and you're so successful, and you just wrote your first to-do list yesterday, you know? So there's always learning curves, I guess, that, you know, it comes in waves, I guess, and that's so cool. And then you're a guy who brands people. So, okay, talk about a few cool projects you've done. Obviously, you know, George St. Pierre, best-selling author. You did the Montreal Canadians 24 CH, which is a reality show with the Montreal Canadiens. Super, super cool show.
What's interesting and what's important, it was the first weekly embedded show of any professional sports team in the world. And for 4 seasons, while some, like HBO, had done 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
But they would go in for a month or two, then they would go away for 6 months, produce some shows, and put them on air. We would shoot from Saturday to Saturday, and then Sunday night there'd be a new show on the air every week for 4 seasons. We had between 600,000 to over 1 million viewers every week across Canada.
Such a great show.
And all it was everything about the Montreal Canadiens except what happens on the ice. A very simple concept. But again, you talked about your goals and your media goals. You're giving yourself key strategic objectives, one key one long term. Well, the same thing for that show was, let's make people fall in love with the players. And that was the purpose. So we did 24CH. I branded the Canadians because they didn't even have a brand identity outside what happened on the ice.
Oh, yeah.
So we did that. Now I work with CF Montreal when we did their rebrand, which was this year, where they changed from Impact to CF Montreal.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. I hate to be ignorant, but, you know, not the biggest soccer fan, but that's what it is, CF Montreal. It's the Montreal Impact of old.
It's the rebranded identity of our Major League Soccer team here in Montreal. And I hear it's a great environment. I mean, Saputo puts on a good show. The stadium's great. I I'm going to bring you out to a game.
I've never actually been to a game. I've been fortunate enough to know you. You've brought me to the Rogers Cup. We sat front row. I still remember that, and thank you very much because that was cool. I had never seen a tennis match, and now I'm watching.
Now you're in one.
Now I'm watching Rafael Nadal from front row,
50 feet away.
Yeah, and it was like I couldn't believe it, and to watch it like that. I mean, I'm spoiled because there's probably tennis fans being like, "Geez, I've only seen it from the nosebleeds."
I'll bring you to CF Montreal.
Yeah,
CFM
I would love
game.
to. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm working with them. I'm working with.
But what's the okay? Before you get into it, so you get a soccer team. You get the CF Montreal. Obviously, hockey, soccer again is a third, fourth tier sport in Montreal because obviously, well, maybe second or third because you've got second. Really, is it second behind? I would say there's Montreal Canadians. I'd say maybe Formula One, but that's seasonal.
When's the last time you went to a Formula One race in Montreal?
I just go to the nightclub after to
exactly.
pick up.
And it's not Montrealers who go to F1.
Yeah, it's true. It's a lot of foreigners.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get a project like this. What's the first thing you look at? Like because
the challenge.
The challenge, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The president calls me and says, I worked with him at the Canadians. We did what Kevin Gilmore and I did. Mm-hmm. I followed his leadership. I was his retainer at the Habs. He goes to the club and he says, I want to rebrand. And as soon as he says that, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be tough. It's going to require all kinds of really challenging elements and a multi-year huge project. And no one ever does this unless they have an culturally offensive name. Mm-hmm. No one rebrands a professional sports team that's been around for 28 years. So I had to do it. That's how I choose my projects. Has anyone else done this? Like my third book's about giving. The reason I wrote a book about Le Livre du Don is about giving.
I gave it to my mom for Christmas. She loves it. Yeah.
Well, I apologize for the Gino chapters. Very graphic scenes with Gino, but it was part of the concept. Yeah. But I wrote a book about giving because no one writes about giving.
It's a great book. Yeah.
My business book is called Weology, How Everybody Wins When We Comes Before Me. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of business leaders are talking about collective good. You know what I mean? So I pick my projects by, are they scary? Has anyone else done it? And is there a chance to do something really different, innovative, and funky? That's what I attract and what I want. So the team, I'm hoping to work with a group of great Canadian women who are creating a women's professional soccer league. So they've reached out to me. I'm working on that. Hopefully that'll come together. And then I've got a film, fictional Hollywood-style film I'm working on. I'm finishing my first novel. All kinds of things.
What kind of novel is it? Like a science fiction?
Self-invention. No.
Oh, okay.
It's funny. The only genre I'm not a fan of is science fiction. Yeah. I've read the big books like Dune, obviously, and Stranger in a Strange Land, and the seminal books. I've read them because they're so well written. But I'm not a science fiction guy. No, it's a jazz. I used to play jazz. My jazz teacher was a legend called Billy Robinson, who played on Attica Blues with Archie Shepp, which is a very important jazz album. He toured with
Canadian?
He's from Texas. He was a Texas tenor. Came here during Vietnam.
Wow.
And fell in love with a French-Canadian woman. And then luckily for me, I'm a jazz fanatic, so I knew all the people he had played with. It would be very funny because I'd be talking about an album by Ornette Coleman, and Billy would be like, yeah, I remember. I got a call, Ornette. I haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks. And you're like,
he knows
it's a bit funky. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's kind of like some guy says, yeah, I got to call Maurice Richard and ask him about that song. And you're like, oh, you played with him. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so that was Billy. So
next
I'm writing a book
jazz.
About the self-invention of life. Oh. Like the principles behind an improvised musical piece in jazz. It's very simple. It's actually what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Improvisation for me is you figure out the notes that make sense for you. Because your notes are different from my notes, or different from Pascal's notes. Your notes may be ba-ba-ba-da-ba, so you build off of that. And then once you figure out what ba-ba-ba-da-ba means, then you start playing around with it, improvising. Ba-ba-ba-da-ba.
Yeah.
Ba-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba. So anyway, invention of life based on what makes you different.
Yeah, it's so cool because I'm learning that in stand-up comedy now that I'm doing more and more shows. You try to emulate certain things that other people do, and you take all the advice you can, but really, like, I have my style. You know, when we do our Vox Pops here, our subscribers know, our fans know, and people know, I'm a very high energy guy. I love to hype up events. I love to hype people up. That's kind of what I love doing. So how do I translate that on stage? And sometimes I'm trying to be, I try to say a joke deadpan, but that's not me. I'm not deadpan. I try to do a joke that's too storytelling. Well, I'm not really a storyteller. I'm more of a hype man, a high energy guy. I can throw out a lot of jokes. One thing with me is I can throw out a lot of jokes within a short amount of time. So now it's different things you have to learn, But yeah, like you said, just making it my own. That's what I'm trying to learn right now. And that's why I'm getting up on stage as much as I can. And I don't say no to anybody. I don't care if they tell me.
And that's why you're having this success.
Yeah. Well, they're calling me a lot. So.
Authenticity, bro. People, they get up there and then they try to be someone else.
Yeah.
Why? Our bullshit meters are higher than they've ever been in the history of the world because of these phones.
Yeah.
So, well, I also I do quotes. Alterius non sit qui suis esse potest. Latin. Be not another if you can't be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out who that is first, and then people will, in their guts, feel this guy's giving me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just it brings them on your side and makes them want you to have success. Anyway, I think it's great.
Well, yeah, that's what I tried to learn from you. And again, just not saying no. And I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to figure out. I remember just a quick anecdote. There was because we've had some comedy guests on, and we have some people kind of getting that branch. But there was a show they asked me to do, and they said, look, we can't promise you anything. It's going to be late. We don't even know if you're going to go up. So by the time I went up, I was the last one because I showed up after doing another set somewhere else about 8 p.m. I showed up maybe about 10:30 p.m. And I get to a room where it's in a bar here in Montreal, and there's maybe 3 people in the crowd, and the rest is 10-15 comedians waiting to do their 10-15 minutes or 5-10 minutes, whatever it is. I ended up going on last. And at the time, there's one drunk guy left, and then there's just comedians left. And everybody's like, I can't believe you stayed. I can't believe you didn't go home. So I just used that time to talk to the person who was drunk and try to get any interaction, any feedback, because I'm like, look, this guy's pissed drunk. He's not harming anybody, so nobody's, obviously I tried to read the room and nobody's really having a hard time with the guy, but maybe he wants to speak to the comedians. He has nothing else to do. So maybe I can have some interactions with him, a la, Richard Pryor back in the day, because that's what he was known for doing, just going to old nightclubs or when he was fortunate enough to have his own, but doing 2 hours of just talking to the people. And if you do that for enough time, eventually you have some new material, some new interactions from being on stage. So, I mean, I thought about you then. I was like, you know what, man? I thought about you when you told me, first of all, about your radio show, 6 a.m., that nobody else wanted to be up that early at the time. You're a young guy. Obviously, you're a university guy, a high school guy. And the fact that you were taking on those sports projects that nobody else wanted to do. So that to me, I think about guys like you. I think about guys obviously like GSP and guys that really, even Pascal, guys are doing stuff that are kind of not normal, for his age, to have all these companies that he does and, to build what he's built here, build that for me. So I try to think about that. So thank you for that, because obviously those lessons came from you.
You had it before. You just maybe didn't even realize it because you hadn't thought about it, because high-level athletes like you all have it. Mm-hmm. And it's
but the difference with sport is, like, you have a practice and you have to be there. I mean, the coach is not always looking, but at least
I'll give you an example. What I say to people when they ask me, Justin, you're 50, how do you stay in shape? How are you able to go train with guys like Jamie and George? And like I've kept up with. I can't fight with you
100%, man. You were there, yeah.
And it's very simple. It's when I explain to people about the importance of training, exercise, or the gym. It's not the good days that matter. It's the bad days. Because it's easy to go when it's a good day.
You feel good. Ate good.
You're dying to go. You ate well. You slept well. You're like, fuck, I'm going to kill my workout. Yeah. Yes. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of, it's Friday night at the comedy club. Seinfeld's going to be there. The room's going to be packed. The energy's going to be off the hook. Yeah. Even if you're average, if you're just a little bit good, you're going to have a great show. Yeah, I want to be there. I want to be in the buzz. No. You were there, the fucking last guy, and there's a drunken asshole who's sitting there who's got nothing better to do, and you say, well, maybe I can get one joke out of my interactions with this guy that I wouldn't have gotten. That's like training when you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
A 25-minute workout when you don't feel like it is more important than a 2-hour workout when you do feel like it, because you didn't waste that day completely. You stuck to your schedule. You gave your body a signal, yourself. I respect myself enough that I'm going to do this, even though all these things. Yeah. Well, that's what you keep doing. And I actually see a lot of professional athletes who have retired struggle with it.
Oh yeah.
Because you don't have a coach. No one called you and said, if you miss today, buddy, you're cut from the team. You miss today, you go, hey, Pascal, I'm sorry about today. Hey, what's your problem? You don't do it too many times. Again, self-discipline.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. What you do when no one's looking.
Yeah, I was just looking at it as an opportunity to maybe learn a new interaction. And again, when you're a new comic, it's very... I mean, I'm lucky that Pascal's given me the opportunity to work as a Vox Pop and interview people on the street. But again, it's hard to do crowd work when you have your set and you're like, I got to tighten up my set. I got to tighten up my 5 to 7. I've got to tighten up my 10 to 12.
I've always thought you were very funny, but looks aren't everything.
So that's it. We won't keep you too much longer, man. I know you got to go. So right now you're working on the novel. That's super cool. Okay, I also want to talk about C2 Montreal because do you do that every year?
I did the first 7 editions, and then I took a break.
Okay.
Because I had done MC, I'd been the host of the thing, I'd done interviews with Andre Agassi, Martha Stewart, Snoop Dogg. I did drugs with Snoop Dogg on a podcast. It was amazing.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Which one? I want to catch
C2
it.
podcast.
Okay.
I was doing interviews in this bubble thing that they created, and Snoop gets in there and he goes, "It's too bad we can't smoke in here, man." And I said, Snoop, you can smoke your face off." And I gave him an ashtray, and he goes, "You serious?" I'm like, "Do it." So he did, and then he passed me the thing, and I'm like, "That's like next to Bob Marley, like that's the guy you want to get down with, you know?" So I did. But yeah, after a while, C2 is a great event, but I just, again, it's something I've done, and I was the mascot one year. I did comedic skits and all costume skits and entertainment. Yeah. So I'm a bit the guy, once you've gone around and done everything, I got to do something different.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is it tough to say no when, is it just like when there's a finality to it? Do you understand? Do you know when it is, or you just got to say, look, enough's enough now?
It's always tough to say no or to put an end to something. But in the case of C2, in a way, I wouldn't say we didn't mutually part ways. They're constantly trying to reinvent as well. You have new people who get in there too. So in a way, you kind of take advantage of it.
Yeah.
There's a new person there, and let's say you've done everything there. Some people want to hold on to that and just keep, and I respect that. I'm not, some people want to hold on to that, and I respect that. I'm not like that.
Yeah.
I've done it once. I need to move on to something else. But that's it. So sometimes you take advantage of the new person and you say, well, I'm going to give you space to put in your own plan. And then they take that well, right? It's a win-win. You say, I'm not going to try to impose myself and hold on to something. If you want me, give me a call. I'm here. And then what happens sometimes is I say, well, I did think of you, but I want to do something different, because they have an innovation agenda too. Yeah. So anyway, it's... what I'm trying to do in my human me, the person me, is eliminate conflict. So things end, and sometimes that's good. A lot of times that's good. It's okay. You move on. It doesn't mean you're breaking a relationship and never coming back. It just means you're both in evolution. You're in growth. So my main focus from that perspective is just eliminate conflict. So that's why I've tried to eliminate a lot of corporate stuff where there's politics and game playing and all this stuff that I just
are we at
just don't care about.
Are we at fuck you money yet? Are we there yet?
Oh God,
we're almost.
No.
Oh shit!
Not even close. Are you crazy?
Justin, come on!
I took my life savings. It's every cent I have to get this farm. I've made choices in my life that have nothing to do with growing a business, that are opposite.
Yeah.
I could be a much wealthier person right now, but I would be a much unhappier person.
For sure.
If you think about it, I mean, I've worked a lot in mental health and mental illness. I've been there myself. I still visit there. I have a lot of friends who go there. I have friends who, you know what I mean? Like it's a tough thing. So I'm just trying to, again, be a good example, eliminate conflict from my life. And when you think about it's the designer, Kate, she committed suicide. A multi-billionaire designer, iconic.
Oh, yes, yeah. Just it was recently.
It's a couple of years ago. Kate Spade came from nowhere, created a global fashion brand that became iconic, multi-billionaire, and her life wasn't worth carrying on
Anthony
with.
Bourdain. Yeah.
So it's not about money.
Yeah.
And I realized that a long time ago. That's the beauty of being a public servant. I didn't grow up with profits and losses. I grew up with what's the best way to serve the public, to run a government, to be collective, to think in those terms of a society. And it wasn't until I was in my late 30s, early 40s that I discovered entrepreneurship and what that means. And thank goodness, because money is, every $5 bill looks the same. That's it. So fuck, who cares? You can't take it with you when you croak.
That's true.
Well, you can. It won't do anything. It'll just sit there and
attract more maggots. Yeah.
Yeah. So who cares?
Yeah.
Love being the best version of who you are and trying to have a smile on your face that's money.
Guys, I couldn't have said it better myself, I don't think. But that's it. I mean, we'll end it there. There's so much more to talk about. Maybe we'll have you. We want to have you on again.
I'd love to come
There's
back.
obviously the way of the fight we have to talk about. There's obviously the when you know the museum work that you've done. You've developed Indiana
that's
Jones.
right.
There's so
Forgot
many.
about
There's so
that.
many things.
Star Wars.
The Star Wars Museum. There's so many things I wanted to get into with you because you've got. You know, I call you the Midas touch because everything you touch kind of goes to
you're
gold.
very kind.
Man, this is guys.
So I'll tell you what. We'll
follow
do the
his
next
stuff.
one. We'll do the George Lucas. We'll start with George Lucas Star Wars.
There you go.
The day that I had to pitch the exhibition that went around the world.
Yeah.
And I'm pitching to two guys, and one of the guys is asleep. So that's what we'll start the next our next conversation with.
Guys, just look him up, Justin Kingsley. He's written amazing things, man. And that's it for us, guys. We don't ask much, but like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And we're going to give you guys, we're going to shorten the show a bit. We're going to give you guys a little bit less frequency, but we're going to put a lot more time into an effort into the shows. And this was a great one. This is a great way to start that. So, guys, look out for kind of the new format we got going. Great interviews. We're going to do some great promotion, great marketing. And Pascal, Merlin, everyone's working hard. Justin, thank you, man.
Thank you, bro. It's a pleasure to be on here. I'm really happy for you, and keep it up. Don't stop.
That was fun,
I'm a
guys.
big fan.
Peace, guys.